We have lived at least 1 century within the idea of opinion, which determined some of the major themes of social sciences. The most important international sociological review was the American Public Opinion Review since the beginning of the 20th century. In short, social sciences were designed in terms of opinion, asking people what they think about themselves, their life, their stories, their issues, their problems. And I believe that social sciences have been transformed into a kind of doxology, which is a word which was used by Gilles Deleuze. But I'm tending rather to oppose this status of sociological research on the same line with, for instance, Frederick Pollack, who criticized this epistemological constraint over social sciences in general in early 50s. My problem here is that sociology is epistemologically or logically tending rather to become a general opinion about opinions of what people are supposed to think about themselves and others, evidently. And this is in clear distinction from the early emergence of social sciences and of social research in general. We have to recall, for instance, we have to remind Karl Marx, who have said that in order to understand what a period or people are, you don't ask them what they think about themselves. There is a deeper level in which the knowledge about oneself should be evaluated. In addition to this, I'm believing that social sciences are tending since the period of academization in early 20s, especially through the famous Chicago School. They have generally tended to become a sociology of opinions. And I believe that through this we have lost in social sciences the ability to create what, for instance, Georg Simmel was calling what we may call the life of affects or affective life, or a social science based on social types which were anonymous entities, but unlike this sociology of opinion, which is not relying upon a second order classification of opinions or interpretation and evidently manipulation of opinions. The idea of opinion, in short, was what the ancient Greeks were calling the doxa, and one philosophically can believe that they opposed it to what actually we are calling as knowledge, which is a bad translation of the ancient Greek term episteme. The episteme was knowledge, evidently, but it was the distinction was quite relative in the case of the ancient Greece. The Socratic dialogues were operating with the confrontation of pretenders, of holders of opinion, out of which the episteme was supposed to be born. This was the aim of the philosophical discussion of the dialectics, the ancient mode of dialectics, which is not an overall philosophical discourse, but rather a clash of opinions. This is why we should relativize this ancient Greek opposition between the doxa and the episteme. And there were many languages opposing each other, out of which it was hoped that a kind of knowledge, a kind of idea would emerge at the heart of the polis of the city. This was the way of Socratic dialogues, and it is essential that there was not only an opposition between episteme and doxa, but also a way of thinking that opinion, the doxa, was covering knowledge which will emerge out of it. And opinion is the way in which various ideas collapse and oppose each other. And this means that the idea of doxa, or opinion, was something to be devalorized, since the Greeks wanted to develop a model based on knowledge. The life, whether political life, philosophical, theoretical life, and vita activa, and so on, were defined not in accordance to the opinion, but on the model of knowing, of knowledge. So this devaluation was a traditional attitude, a traditional philosophical attitude, which prevailed until the time of Pascal, for instance. Pascal was quite an interesting man, since he redefined, seemingly, the notion of opinion, which is quite different from that of the Greeks or medieval era. The main problem for Pascal, when he asked opinions, seemingly opinions of people, does God exist, for instance, this was not a philosophical problem. This was a problem of belief and opinion, evidently. But it was not posed. Pascal's question, did God exist, was not posed in the same manner today in television or in social thinking, in polls, in TV panels, etc. Is not the same way of asking the question. What he was interested, what interested Pascal was essentially not the knowledge about the existence of God, nor what people are thinking about this. He was trying to compare the three precisely mathematically defined positions within a state of opinion. In other words, it was an existential thinking, way of thinking, what mattered for Pascal. And he was saying to us that you should bet to the existence of God. It is of your own interest to choose to believe in God. And you are existentially superior. You will lose less if you bet for the existence of God. And this is the major problem of the existential thinking, you know, a new model of thinking about belief or faith, if you want. And Pascal could also be the founder of working hypothesis about our today's sociological understanding of opinions. There was an important text by Frederick Pollack, I think, in 50s. He was a man close to the Frankfurt School, and he was working in the United States, which is a society of opinion, exactly, not a society of knowledge or something like that, where opinions and their equality in the heart, not of the state, but evidently the liberal democratic situation. His problem was about a methodological problem of the empirical research into public opinion. This was the title of the article, I think. And what it told us was definitely similar to the position, to the ambiguous position described by Pascal, for instance. He was telling us that when you ask the opinion of the people, they are somehow psychologically and even sociologically compelled to answer. Opinion only appears when a question is posed, when a question is directed towards an individual. And this is also somehow individuating the position of the individual. And this is the mainstream concern of evidently the so-called liberal democratic societies today. And everything pertaining to the democracy, in the modern sense, is somehow related to the opinion, our opinion poll or research. And one of the main problems, as you know, is that our electoral systems is a poll over, empirical poll over opinion. Secondly, there is something which I should take, perhaps ironically, the notion of public opinion, which exists since the end of 19th century. One of the first, it is interesting that one of the first notion concerning public opinion was developed in Europe by Søren Kierkegaard when he was opposing the democratic model of society, and which is based on the opinion, equalization of the opinion, and not of the existential situations, not in the model of thinking and believing, but on the model of having opinions, since believing is anchored on the idea of truth, you know, while opinion is something different. It is not about the truth values, which is the main concern of the opinion. We will see this. And this notion of public opinion is a bit strange, since because since early Greeks, you know that every opinion is public, in fact, while to forge a term public opinion is quite an interesting manner in which in the American liberal democratic society acknowledged what we call opinion. Thirdly, when the problem of opinion is considered not only as a sociological way in which, the social way in which subjects are distinguishing themselves or situating themselves in a given society, which is a strictly modern type of opinion society, public opinion society. The problem was that opinion means, since Spinoza, for instance, the way in which people are imagining themselves, their environment. This is imagination, which Spinoza, of course, devalorized in a way that it was the first kind of knowledge, not the intuitive, not the existential kind of knowing. But anyway, for Spinoza, imagination or opinion, imagining, judging, and so on, this manner of situating oneself in a given context of life or society was strictly modeled on the idea of knowledge. It was an affective knowledge. It was not a kind of knowledge which grasps or something like that, but a passive way of knowing, the way in which the subject, no subject doesn't exist evidently for Spinoza, but we can reformulate this in this sociological manner if you want. It is the way in which it is, opinion or imagination, is the first reaction of people to a situation or to a life context. And this is in a way related evidently to the problem of language, which didn't exist, for instance, in ethics, but which was, yes, it is quite interesting. Language is not something assumed in ethics. Ethics evidently is language, but Spinoza never speaks about language in ethics. When he will speak, it is only in the domain of politics. Then he analyzes in Tractatus Theologicus Politicus the scriptural language, the language of the commanding and so on, the language of the opinions and narratives. So it was quite important to me that Spinoza's understanding of opinion should be regenerated in the domain of sociological methods of understanding opinion. And Spinoza strictly tells us that having an opinion, having a judgment about something, including aesthetic judgments, there is a way in which, like Bourdieu would say, a kind of distinction. One distinguishes himself within a class of people or define a group of which he is a member and so on, only through declaring or expressing his opinions. In other words, when you have a judgment about something, an issue, you are directly becoming a member of a group who has a judgment. In other words, in a society of opinion, you are judged by your own judgments. In this way, I think the model of opposition between thinking and having opinion or expressing opinion is no longer in the way the Greeks philosophically understood what is opinion or doxa. It is no longer modeled on knowledge, but it is, since Kant at least, a kind of having an aesthetic judgment in general, not especially about art or something like that, but aesthetic judgment, the phenomenal aesthetic judgment in general. Well, I was talking about sociology, especially mainstream sociology, primarily concerned with depiction and classification of opinions. It was essential for me the Spinozist understanding, which equals opinion as the first way of knowledge with two notions, affects, which is wrongly translated into English as emotions. Opinion deserves attention since it is an emotive position, and also with the notion of images, which evidently from the time of Spinoza to ours have encountered a very important evolution, especially with the invention of photography, the press, the television, and today we have the internet. This is a world of images and opinions at the same time. And somehow I think that the founder of the so-called sociology of opinions was Gabriel Tarde at the end of the 19th century, who was a thinker who strictly opposed Durkheim's way of constituting sociology or social science, in the sense that he was no longer concerned, Gabriel Tarde, unlike Durkheim, with social facts, but phenomena of contagion and imitation, the processes of imitation, and the idea of oppositions, which really constitutes a sociology of interactions somehow. This was for me a quite sane way of thinking about the social, what we call social, since individual lives and affects the dissemination of images, ideas, and so on, for Tarde was not only a social setting or context, but also individuations. Individual ideas were much more important as emergences before being expanded throughout history through interactions and so on. So Gabriel Tarde was, I think, phenomenally the founder of a sociology of mass media, generally in an age where television didn't exist, evidently. And he was exactly calling his sociology a sociology of opinions. But he had a deeper understanding of the notion of opinion, in a way quite distinct from the Greeks' understanding between truth and the distinction or opposition between truth, knowledge, episteme, and doxa. In Tarde's understanding, there's something quite important for our purpose, I think. Tarde was talking about a quite interesting notion, a series of notions which defines a new model of political economy, I think. He was talking about truth values, for instance, or about beauty values in the domain of aesthetics, for instance, or in the domain of science and philosophy. The truth value belonged in a way for Tarde to the circuit of the opinions, in fact. the main problem was that he was criticizing political economists of the time, including Marx, perhaps, that their model for understanding production and the circuits of exchange and so on the model of the production of a pin factory, the famous example of Adam Smith. But he criticized them since they never asked the same question for how a book or a music, a piece of music or a theater or an image, for instance, is produced. Evidently, the Simmel also was thinking in the same manner. It was not a question of the autonomy of art without a claim, of the artist to escape from the commodification of his products. Simmel and Tarde never believed that this could be possible under a capitalist society, evidently under modern conditions. But a book or an image is not produced in the same way in a pin factory, and it is not consumed or exchanged in the same way than a pin, than an automobile, since the latter, in accordance to the classical political economic model, the consumption for this kind of material production is at the same time the destruction of. In other words, unlike a book or an image, when you consume it, when you consume an image, it increases in some way. It expands. It is not destroyed. A book, an idea, a beauty value, a truth value generally expands. It's a way of contagion in the domain of social interaction. And this is the, I think, very important aspect of or the importance, determining the importance of Gabriel Tarde for us when today we are talking about immaterial labor in the book of Negri and so on. A serious reading of Tarde would help, I think, especially his famous book Laws of Imitation, and especially at the same time his economic psychology somehow. We should add that opinions are also part of this production, which is not based on the destructive production, but production of contaminations and social interactions in such a way. And it is essential to note that in today's world, we can no longer oppose opinion with knowledge or information, since information is nothing but a kind of opinion, even when it is in fact a restriction of opinion. It is something restraining, codifying opinions and serving to their circuiting within the domain of the social, on a planetary level, evidently, on a global level, the flows of opinions. This is the way in which mass communications today should be understood. The press as the site of opinions, or the circulation of opinions, and especially the television, the world of images. Statements, statements, to be feared, collapse and oppose each other, to believe, to believe, faith, harm society, to be feared, collapse and oppose each other, to believe, An important thing about modernity, I think, is that the social being or the political nature of life was something almost guaranteed for the Greeks, while they were a society of opinion and language at the same time, or of a society of dialectics on the Platonic model, the Socratic Platonic model. Although they were a society of opinion, at the same time, for the Greeks, there was a problem. Language and opinions, the category of opinions, was something dangerous to be feared, since opinion is something which is always open to abuse, the possibility of abuse. This is why I think Greeks were, while a society of language and opinions, at the same time they have tried to discipline language. They needed a great and all-covering pedagogy, which was called pedia, which was the education of the citizen. This project of pedia was based on the control of language and the circulation of opinions. And this is why, for instance, Aristotle has intended to write a huge rhetorics. There is a constant reference in the world of Greeks to the idea of doxa, that unlike the regime of knowledge, opinion was something dangerous, politically dangerous. Secondly, for the Greeks, or for other traditional, if you want, societies up to the Renaissance, the social nature of mankind or of the society was something guaranteed, either by God or nature. This is why Aristotle didn't need to explain how society becomes possible, since it was guaranteed by the nature of the mankind. The zoon politikon, it was a gregarious animal, a political animal by nature. Therefore, a society, the social being, was not something to be explained, and sociology was impossible, therefore, for that epoch. And in the same way, for theocratic societies, evidently, or theologically defined societies, especially in medieval era. This time, not nature, but God. The order of God was guaranteeing the social being, the communal social being of the people. When we come to Renaissance, especially, everything changed. There's a rupture which should be defined as the early beginnings of the modern understanding of politics. This was, for instance, Machiavelli or Hobbes. For instance, Machiavelli needed a supplementary notion, a notion of agency, if you want, to define the possibility of the social or of the political nature of human life. It was no longer guaranteed by nature. It was no longer guaranteed by God. Therefore, the social and political nature of man was something to be explained. From the unpolitical to the political situation, Machiavelli and Hobbes have tried to inscribe an agency. For this agency, evidently for Machiavelli, was the prince. The prince could also be a popular democratic institution, of course. And for Hobbes, on the other hand, the passage from the non-social to the social situation, which is not a chronological but hypothetical situation, was the so-called social contract. An agency was being called into the affair. Therefore, by all these theories of social contract, or in a different manner, for instance, for Machiavelli, or a line from Machiavelli to Spinoza, for instance, who is not exactly of the opinion of the natural right or something social contract, or other manners of thought relevant in this epoch. The main problem, I think, was for modern understanding of politics that this agency is not something natural. It is a passage from the natural to the social, to the cultural, and so on. And this was the idea of opinion, which was essential there, and the equality of opinions in such a way. You can manage a differentiation, for instance, in the notion of knowledge, levels of knowing. Knowledge could be accumulated in such a way, but opinion is always equal for each one of us. This is not an accumulatory process. It is equalized at every level of society, since these are images. In fact, the images people have of their world, of their environment, of their society, of their work, of their life, and so on, of their culture in general. This is why opinion was constituted as the modern agency, modern way of agency for keeping people in a community or in a society, if you want. Without the expression of opinions and their circulation, no society could be possible. There is just another important aspect or dimension of the concept of opinion, I think. This was somehow defined in the times of René Descartes, when with his principle of cogito. The cogito before Descartes, probably for the Greek model of thinking, or the Greek or the philosophical understanding of Greek philosophers about the notion of what is thinking, which is a Heideggerian question, was da ist denken. Up to Descartes, I think, thinking, the dianoia, for instance, as the internal monologue of the mind, within the mind, in the Platonic sense, thinking was thought, in fact, having reflections of ideas, as if ideas were located within the things, or somehow at the heavens, in God, or and thinking means only a reflection, an echo in the mind of man. This was the Greek and medieval model. By Descartes, something changed in this manner. Thinking becomes actually human ability or capacity, human activity in general, the activity of an I, evidently. This is the creation of subject, and of subjectivity of thinking. I believe that if you consider the thinking as act, an act of thinking, this also probably had many important consequences in modern life, the principle of cogito. If this is an activity, thinking, if it's a human activity, a cerebral, a mental activity, this also means that this activity could be opposed by other powers, mainly political powers, who exert some repression. Man becomes an animal who can be prevented from thinking, to accomplish his act of thinking. This means that by Descartes and afterwards, up to the Enlightenment, we may consider that many juridical, legal, and political institutions were constituted in Western Europe around this act of thinking, around this capacity of thinking, a system of rights, for instance, or liberties, freedom of thinking, and so on. Evidently, in the times of Greeks also, there were pressures over thinking people. But since the Greeks or medieval thinkers never thought about a thinking which is a human act, which is only a reflection, a faint reflection of ideas, they were incapable to develop the notion of the right to think. For instance, in Spinoza, on the other hand, I believe that there is a different understanding of thinking and as opposed to opinion. This is not primarily a simple opposition. Spinoza also, like Descartes, and under his influence, believes that there is a human capacity to think. But there is also for Spinoza a human incapacity to think, which is opinion, the first kind of knowledge. And up to Heidegger's question that are we able to think, this problem of opinion as source of illusions, not to attain the truth, the notion of truth already questioned by Nietzsche, evidently. The truth is the deepest lie for Nietzsche, but we need this deepest lie in order to survive. We need these illusions. And these illusions, as Spinoza was showing, the necessary illusion, this was the way in which he was calling it as the first kind of knowledge, the natural man, the natural finitude of man, knowing only the effects but not causes and so on, which is the Spinoza's core of the passage from opinion, mere opinion or imagination to reason and intuition, then up to the third kind of knowledge. I think this is very important for our purpose. Opinion as a kind of incapacity to think, which is necessary, which is necessitated by our presence in this world, which was evidently questioned by Heidegger, for instance, and quite deeply questioned. As for the Greeks, opinion was a starting point of an ascendance towards knowledge. In modern sense, this is our somehow our incapacity to think. This is strictly a major difference between the notion of doxa and opinion, especially public opinion. And I think that there are today the fact that communities are always constituted around some opinions, not ideas, but around opinions, is just an interesting event when we consider what we call modernity, modern life. This explains why there is today the notion of public opinion. Since for the Greeks, opinion was already the public emergence of an expression of an idea, of intentions, of pretensions, and so on. Today, this is almost automatically performed within the social bodies, through the media, through the press, and through books, through all kinds of truth values or beauty values in certain manner. I think this is one of the definitions of modernity, and this is why we need a notion of public opinion today. But I have never believed to the Habermasian way, for instance, of an ideal of communication, of communicative action. Since first you have to have something to be communicated in order to answer yourself. in the domain of opinions. You have first to have an idea in order to express this. And what is important is not the channel, the democratization of the channel of communication, but especially the democratization of ideas and images, especially, since images are ideas today in the world of television. This is mainly the problem, which is also technical, I think. Technical political question. This is what I believe.